The Ford Prefect story began in the late 1930s, during a time when the British automobile market was beginning to mature and shift toward more accessible, mass-produced cars. Ford Motor Company's British division, operating out of its Dagenham plant in Essex, recognized a growing demand among middle and working-class families for dependable and affordable vehicles. Britain's roads were narrow, its economy cautious, and its people practical. They needed cars that could perform well on uneven rural roads, remain cheap to run, and withstand the unpredictable British climate. The Ford Prefect was conceived with this reality in mind. Introduced in 1938, it was built as a slightly larger and more upscale version of the Ford 8, itself a popular small car designed to undercut the offerings from Morris and Austin. The Prefect's name was a nod to the British school system. Prefect, referring to a senior student entrusted with responsibility and authority. The name carried a sense of tradition, order, and class stability, aligning well with the car's intended image: respectable, responsible, and reliable. From a technical standpoint, the first Ford Prefect was modest. It was powered by a small 1.0-liter side-valve inline-4 engine, producing around 30 horsepower. Barely enough to push it beyond 60 miles per hour, but sufficient for conditions of its day. It featured a simple 3-speed gearbox, rear-wheel drive, and mechanical brakes, all encased in a conservative, upright saloon body. The design was no nonsense. Squared-off fenders, large round headlamps, a vertical radiator grille, and a tall stance that gave drivers good visibility. The simplicity of its mechanics made it appealing to both owners and mechanics. Easy to service, inexpensive to maintain, and forgiving in operation. It was designed to function over flair, built to withstand years of use rather than to win style awards. What made the Prefect especially appealing was its affordability relative to the reliability it offered. And in a time when private car ownership was still a luxury, that balance struck a chord with many British buyers. As the late 1930s progressed, the Prefect began establishing itself as a familiar and trusted sight on British roads. Its straightforward construction and predictable performance made it a popular choice for families, small businesses, and even government departments. Taxi drivers, traveling salesmen, and rural doctors adopted it for its practicality and low running costs. Yet, its growing success was abruptly halted by the outbreak of the Second World War in 1939. Civilian automobile production across Britain came to a near standstill as factories, including Ford's Dagenham plant, shifted focus to support the war effort. Ford's assembly lines were repurposed to build military trucks, utility vehicles, and equipment crucial to Britain's survival. For the Prefect, this meant an indefinite pause. But ironically, the qualities that made it popular, simplicity, durability, and reliability, were the same principles that guided production of Ford's wartime vehicles. When the war ended in 1945, Britain was left in ruins, its industries battered, its people exhausted, and its economy rationed to the bone. But there was a deep desire to rebuild, to restore some sense of normalcy to daily life, and mobility played a key role in that. Ford quickly recognized this opportunity and restarted production of the Prefect almost exactly as it had been before the war. There was no time or money for radical redesigns. The priority was to get cars back on the roads and factories back in operation. The post-war Prefect was therefore nearly identical to its pre-war version, carrying over its upright body, mechanical brakes, and simple engine. But that familiarity worked in its favor. It was dependable and familiar in an era of uncertainty. It became a symbol of quiet resilience, modest but sturdy, reliable but unpretentious, the kind of car people trusted when everything else around them seemed fragile. During the late 1940s, demand for the Prefect surged as British citizens scrambled to buy any vehicle available. Imports were limited, and rival automakers like Austin and Morris couldn't produce fast enough to meet domestic demand. The Prefect filled this gap perfectly. Ford's Dagenham plant operated tirelessly, turning out Prefects for eager buyers who valued any car that could start, drive, and last. For many, it was their first ever car, a literal engine of post-war recovery. Its small 1.0-liter side-valve engine might have been old-fashioned, but it was easy to repair and incredibly fuel-efficient, an important advantage in a period when petrol was still rationed. It was not fast or luxurious, but it was practical, familiar, and attainable, which made it deeply loved by those who owned it. Throughout the late 1940s and into the early 1950s, the Ford Prefect became a cornerstone of British motoring. It represented stability during Reconstruction, reliability in an uncertain economy, and freedom in an era still shadowed by war. Families used it to visit relatives in newly rebuilt cities. Tradesmen relied on it to deliver goods, and civil servants used it as their daily transport. Its presence stretched far beyond the cities, finding favor in rural communities where road conditions were often poor, and where the Prefect's sturdy suspension and uncomplicated design shined. Mechanics appreciated it for being forgiving and easy to work on, as nearly every part could be repaired or replaced without specialized equipment. In a way, the Prefect was not just a car, it was an equalizer, giving average Britons the ability to travel farther and faster than public transport could allow, a small but profound taste of modern mobility. Yet by the early 1950s, it was increasingly clear that the world around the Prefect was changing. Britain was slowly leaving austerity behind, and automotive design was entering a new era of style, comfort, and innovation. Cars like the Morris Minor and Austin A40 began offering more modern shapes, smoother handling, and better braking systems. The Prefect, still based on a pre-war chassis and mechanical setup, started to show its age. Its upright body looked old-fashioned compared to the sleeker, more rounded silhouettes appearing on the roads. Its mechanical brakes and side-valve engine were relics of another time. Even so, Ford's conservative approach to updating the Prefect was deliberate. They were aware that their customer base still valued dependability over novelty. The Prefect's role was not to impress, but to endure. And in that sense, it fulfilled its purpose perfectly. It remained an affordable, honest car for those who needed transportation, not fashion. But deep within Ford's British division, engineers and designers were already working on what would become the Prefect's most dramatic transformation, the 100e series, a modernization effort that would define the next phase of its story. When Ford introduced the Prefect 100e in 1953, it represented a complete transformation from the car's pre-war design. The new model embraced a modern monocoque construction that made it lighter, stronger, and more refined on the road. Its styling was sleek and contemporary, with rounded lines, integrated headlights, and a single-piece windshield replacing the old boxy look. Inside, Ford offered a cleaner dashboard, comfortable seating, and simple controls that made it an ideal family car for the growing post-war middle class. Mechanically, the Prefect 100e used a 1.2-liter side-valve engine producing around 36 horsepower, paired with a 3-speed manual gearbox and improved independent front suspension. Hydraulic brakes replaced the outdated mechanical system, making it safer and smoother to drive. The Prefect's biggest strength was its dependability. Cheap to run, easy to maintain, and widely serviceable, it became popular not only in Britain, but across Commonwealth markets, where its simplicity suited local conditions perfectly. It was reliable transportation for working-class families, small business owners, and everyday drivers who value practicality over flair. However, by the late 1950s, consumer tastes were shifting. Competitors like the Morris Minor and Austin A35 offered fresher styling and more advanced engines, and Ford's own new model, the Anglia 105e, launched in 1959, made the Prefect look dated almost overnight. The Anglia's modern overhead valve engine and distinctive design captured the younger generation's attention, signaling that the Prefect's time had passed. Production of the Prefect ended quietly in 1961 after more than 2 decades of loyal service. It was succeeded indirectly by models like the Anglia and later the Cortina, which took Ford into a new era of performance and modern styling. Though the Prefect faded from the roads, it achieved unexpected immortality when Douglas Adams used its name for the character Ford Prefect in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a tongue-in-cheek tribute to how ordinary and unmistakably British the car had been. In the end, the Prefect stood as a symbol of reliability and resilience, never glamorous, but always dependable, representing the everyday spirit of post-war Britain and the foundation of Ford's enduring success in Europe.